All right, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100, we start with SPY. You can see that we actually opened the day really nice, right back above 580, pushing back into 582, but ultimately rejecting. You zoom out, you go into about the 1 hour, you can see that that 182 level was about that midpoint back into those highs locally around 585, 586, where you've been getting rejected as well. The biggest thing to recognize here on the S&P is that you're clearly just trading in a range at this point in between 578 and basically 85. Really, you had a few little rejections, little breakouts above that, but ultimately that's where you're trading right now. There's no clear breakout. There's no continuation in the works as of right now. You look at NQ, the Nasdaq futures, and I think you get a little bit more of a visual here as well. We saw a nice gap up this morning, a nice push to start back into basically 20,700. If you're unaware on the daily time frame, above this 20,600 with a good daily hold, in my opinion, you're pushing towards, all-time highs locally. We'll go more into that here in a second. But as you can see throughout the day, you reject back to the downside. You go to more small time frames. You can see pre-market around 4 a.m., 5 a.m., you reject. 8:30 right before market open, you reject and pull back and make lower highs for the remainder of the day. But ultimately, you don't come back down into our range in between 20,500, 20,250, 20,300 locally down here, which is kind of where you're anticipating some of those sellers to try to push you into, okay? Those are the biggest points right now. What I will say, though, you're still locally sitting above our overall range on the NASDAQ. You're trying to push up. You have areas of the market that look decent. Tech is in a good position going into earnings. This week specifically, I think technicals, you have to take a step back, right? Few things we're looking at. Tomorrow, earnings really begin. Today, I don't think it was that important. Even tomorrow morning, you have SoFi and PayPal, McDonald's, a few names you're interested in, but those aren't major market movers, okay? Tuesday in the after hours, tomorrow it begins. AMD, major mover, will set the tone for semiconductors and chips and demand. Google, again, very important. Snapchat, it usually plays out and, moves Meta a little bit. Meta has earnings on Wednesday, but I will say Meta is moving now based off of different branches that it's getting into. We'll go over that here in a second. But those are your big names there at Reddit. We know I love Reddit as a mid cap. But Wednesday, again, you have your Dow names, Eli Lilly, Caterpillar, and then obviously after hours, Microsoft, Meta, Coinbase. We'll go into those tomorrow, things like that. But tomorrow in the after hours, AMD, Google are your big names to watch. Why are they important? Let's first of all start with SMH, semiconductors. For a better part of the day, semiconductors move to the downside, as you can see. Friday, you also tried to get the remount. And what we're looking at here for SMH semiconductors is a break and mount above 256. Obviously, Friday, you sat there, you tried to mount, and then you rejected back to the downside. This morning, nothing but downside as well. Lower highs all day long, end of the day break to the downside. Now, you saw in the after hours, you're trying to get a push up. You're trying to find buyers. That's good. Awesome. Cool. But I think AMD plays a major factor into this. We go into AMD. You can also see here on the day, even though semiconductors were bearish, AMD had a good movement on the day, right? But it's important to recognize a few things here on AMD. Number one, you are still trading on the downside here below the 200 SMA. We all know below the 200, you're very bearish. You got to be very careful. We're not looking to get too bullish until you get above that. You also can see here on very high time frames, I would argue you're in a downward channel, right? On the daily, you can really see it better, but that's where you're at. So these earnings play very big implications for the stock. If earnings go well, you're going to have your opportunity to go long, back into 174, back into 186, potentially, if earnings go well. But the big play, in my opinion, is going to be names like NVIDIA, mounting previous all-time highs, trying to get the break up. ARM, a cheaper semiconductor out there too, pushing back into 164 again and maybe back in all-time highs, near 188, 190. That's the play there. You don't have to be and you don't have to force trades with these earnings and guess how they're going to go. If you let the market play out, let the fundamental viewpoint get out there, and then trade based on that, I promise that's where you'll make your money trading earnings. So if you're that guy that's like, hey, I'm going to trade PayPal earnings, I'm going to trade Meta earnings, like do what you want to do. Go risk all your money on things that you really don't have any clue about. If you are really studying the fundamentals and you'll have an edge, but I will tell you right now, like as a day trader, that should not be your focus, is gambling on earnings. And if you are, like, best of luck to you. I hope you do well, but I know typically how it's going to end for 99% of people that are trying to trade these earnings. So again, semiconductors, very interesting, very good spot. Good earnings from SMH can have you back above 256. One thing that I will add in here, cleaning up this chart just a little bit, is you're still making higher lows on SMH overall, right? Holding with the 200, you're clearly at your key level, 256. We know when we get above 256, buyers are going to step in aggressively like they did before. So again, be patient, head on a swivel. But again, big opportunities coming up very soon. Now, obviously, the next Google, Alphabet. One of my favorite names here, guys. I've been saying it for a while. I think Google, the inverse head and shoulder. I've been posting this on Twitter. And again, if you don't follow on Twitter, I recommend doing so. I try to post to keep you guys up to date all the time. I haven't been able to post this much in the past day or so. Just the action's been negligible, nothing's happening. So I'm trying to keep you up to date on some of the charts I'm watching, but there's not too much you can really do. But I keep you guys up to date. If you have questions, I do chart requests as well. So I make sure I try to go over those names as much as possible for you. So Google has been one of my favorite names. In my opinion, it's a clear-cut inverse head and shoulders on the higher time frame. And you want to see the higher time frame inverse head and shoulders. That's where you get the real moves. Again, you can see shoulder, shoulder, head, and then clear neckline at 168.5. You got the touch of 168.5 this morning. If you get the mount and the break up, I mean, it's clear as day with good earnings as well. I think you push into 175. But the thing that has me most excited about Google is that you're doing this on the pullback on Google as well with earnings coming up. Some of these stocks, I'm going to go over this later in the week as well, like Apple, you're going to have earnings, but you're almost at all-time highs, right? You're basically there. Meta, you're basically there as well. You're not really pulling back. Names like Microsoft, Google, and even AMD are interesting because they're pretty pulled back off their all-time high. Like Google still has, all-time highs at 192. You have almost $30 to go to there. So that's what I'm really excited about. That's why I'm watching Google so much. And also the setup and the reversal here could be potentially amazing. Again, I'm fine missing out on the immediate gains. I will trade the good earnings to the upside as well on that breakout. You don't need to be the first person. I'll say this over and over. I am okay missing out on an opportunity. I am not okay gambling on an opportunity that I believe was there, right? I'm not going to just take a wild gamble. I'm going to wait, let the fundamentals play out as well, and then trade based on the reaction of the market. That's the opportunity that I say here over and over and over. And too many times I see you guys harping on, I could have made money on this. You could have gambled. You could have took the 50-50 chance and had no edge and just woke up and either lost all your money or made some money. Do you really want to go down that path? That's the real question you have to ask yourself, right? So that's what I'm looking at. Google looks good. They're also releasing some new tools as well with their AI stuff. So I'm excited about that. Those are the biggest things I'm watching there. Reddit, those other names look interesting. Again, I like them a lot, but Reddit, above 75. I mentioned down at 55, 58. So you didn't get into it. It's tough. So that's what I'm watching there as far as earnings going into tomorrow. Key levels on SPY. Let me be very, very clear about this. Again, if SPY continues to hold most of your levels, number one, if you hold above 575, you're still very bullish, okay? You have another key level, 178.5 locally, and then 580. You're holding 580, so ultimately today wasn't really that bearish. I continue to harp on this as well, is you're making higher lows here from that local low here, so it's not that bad. Another big point here is Dow. This is something that I've been watching pretty closely and I've been mentioning, is Dow's kind of sitting in this downtrend, as you can see here, coming back from previous all-time highs. You're trying to break out of it, as you can see. Dow, despite some of the struggles on Nasdaq and ES, Dow held up very good today and was definitely the bright spot of the market. If Dow breaks out of this, I think ES and SPY can get some continuation, especially with the earnings that are stepping in as well. If you get tech and the Dow moving, again, SPY can explode. Again, so things you need to be watching for there. I'm really watching Dow here, and this is why SPY didn't really see any selling today. It's because Dow held up so well. That's the biggest point that you have to be watching right now, is how Dow's moving as well. So again, what we're watching for there. Another big bright spot of the market is XLF banks. Something I told Discord as well. I did not take the trade on banks today, but I was watching XLF get the bounce back. Obviously, XLK had the big breakout here on higher time frames. You're kind of consolidating here, a little bit of a flag, if you will. Looks very clean, very strong, as you can see. Again, wants to break back out. Names like Goldman Sachs look really good. Started breaking back above 517.5, your previous high there. That was very strong. I'm targeting locally 527, 526. Above that, you probably break into all-time highs, but you can see very similar pattern mounting previous all-time highs. JP Morgan also looks good. This is more of just a flat top breakout. Looks explosive above 226. So going into tomorrow, if I'm bullish, I'd be watching banks for sure, because again, the upside looks very likely here as well. Morgan Stanley, another decent looking name here also. You can go down the list. Citigroup looks okay, not my favorite. Bank of America, not a huge fan, but looks decent as well. So those are the biggest names I'd be watching: Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and Goldman. I'd keep those on the top of my watch list if I'm watching any type of bullish behavior for some continuation tomorrow. Tesla as well. Again, I posted this on Twitter. I try to keep you guys updated as much as possible. Again, if you don't follow on Twitter, I don't know what else to say. Like, again, I post it here, but I also try to keep you guys as updated as possible on Twitter. But again, going into Tesla, let me make sure I can find it. I know I posted it today for you guys as well. Yeah, Tesla here. But again, October 26th, said right here, goal was to mount 264, 265. You did that all on Friday. 274 is first target, then 295, 300. You came almost right into it, 273.5, about 50 cents off, so I'm sorry. But again, you mounted that level, 265, push into it, kind of reject off of it. So we'll see if you get back above 265. If you start breaking back below 260, I'll be looking towards 254. If you start breaking below that, then again, you're pretty illiquid back to the 200 SMA. So I'll keep you guys updated there as well. But overall, like, you can see what I'm looking for right now, right? It's, can we maintain out of the range here on Nasdaq, which right now, all things considered, pretty decent. If you break back below 20,500, it's, I don't know, pretty illiquid, back down to 20,300, 20,350. So expect some of that behavior there. ES, as long as Dow holds up, I'm looking for ES to hold up as well. You're holding above, SPY's 580. That's a good look. As far as ES here as well, you're holding that median little range here as well. 58.65 above that, you're looking for a push into 58.92. So again, making higher lows as well. That is a good viewpoint. I could see the little consolidation here, maybe presenting itself as a flag, but you still look good because you're making higher lows on higher time frames. So that's what you're looking for. If you start to break a little bit of a downtrend here, again, I see the volume. I can see the push back up with Dow and what's happening here with tech. So again, the biggest points here today and going into this week is stay pretty conservative going into these earnings, trade the momentum, but also too, like, these earnings are going to be huge. Like, holding stuff overnight, high risk. I'm not saying you can't make money, but just understand the risk that's playing out there. I think the only earnings that, like, I would potentially hold overnight, again, I'm not telling you to trade them, would be Coinbase this week. I think Coinbase is the only thing that could run overnight. I'm going to tell you right now. I think Apple is going to be bad. So again, that's going to be near the end of the week. I'll go more into that here at the end of the week and what's happening with that data and why I think Apple could be pretty terrible for the market. But besides that, I think everything else has really good potential and why I'm watching it and the upside potentially there. I think Wednesday is a very big day for the market as well with Eli Lilly and Caterpillar. I think that could really prop up the Dow and get us pushing back into all-time highs, because specifically Eli Lilly and XLV, the healthcare sector, is getting just tore up recently. If that starts to bounce, Dow's going to go ballistic. So again, what I'm watching for, what I'm looking for here in this market, I think there's a lot of big opportunities. It's more about just being patient and taking those opportunities. One more thing I'll highlight here is SPY's volume here on the day. You saw some volume kick in near the end of the day, but again, just understand you're at 28.2 mil volume. That is literally nothing. Giving you an instance, like, again, I've been coming back to Edgeful. I know you guys like seeing this data here. Your average volume, even on Monday for the last 6 months, is around 38 roughly million. Your lowest volume of the day is typically Monday. But again, terrible. Very, very low, 28.2. Big money is positioning itself. It is waiting for these earnings. Don't get caught being liquidity. Don't get caught being super gambling going into these earnings. Like, understand the risk and what you're really putting yourself, the position you're putting yourself into here. Is it really worth it? So again, that is totally up to you guys. But that's my viewpoint, what I'm watching. If you have questions, comment down below. I'd love to answer those. Have a good one, traders. I'll see you tomorrow. Again, make sure you follow on Twitter for all the updates. I have this earnings retweeted as well up there. I have a little bit of a rundown going over the earnings as well coming on Twitter tonight. So make sure you're looking out for that. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one, traders.